Hello and welcome to the Fedora Files. I am Gregory Fedora, and we got a great show for today. We got Mrs. Sandi Layne. You are a very busy lady, I know, so I'm gonna keep it in the time frame I have. I told you 15 to 20 minutes. I'm gonna do that because I know time is important to you because you're married, you're a mother, and a writer. And I want to, how many books have you written?
Now, do you mean how many books I've published or how many books I've written?
Well, all right, how many books have you published first?
I think I've got at least 12 or 13
12 or 13.
available on Amazon at this time.
How many have you written?
23.
Wow. Are you going to eventually publish those, or are those just you did it for fun and you just or
A lot of it
family?
was just learning how to write. It was kind of just things I needed to do to learn how to finish a story. So,
Oh,
yeah.
so they're like practice runs.
Yeah, practice runs.
Yes.
Exactly.
So, all right. What genre do you, or genres, I guess, because you could probably do more than one. What genres do you seem to gravitate more towards?
Anything requiring research is
Okay.
like my favorite thing. So if it's a contemporary romance, I'm researching background. If it's historical, I'm researching time and place and speaking and stuff like that. So anything. I
So,
just like
like,
to.
oh, so research, so you like get into it, you go, like, if you want to set in a certain city, you look up that city, find all the hot spots and like even probably the lingo they have and like
Yep.
the things those people would do. And but like
Yes.
historical, that takes probably even more because you gotta really dive into making sure you have the right kind of clothing and weaponry or whatever. Because I
Oh
know
yeah.
you're into Vikings. I
Oh
know
yes.
that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Vikings was actually a sideline. It didn't. That's not what I started writing.
Mhm.
But you're talking about my Heirs Viking trilogy, yeah?
Yes, I am talking about that.
That's cool because that's like one of the things I'm most proud of ever having managed to get out of my body. So that's really cool. But yeah, that one took place in the ninth century, which of course you can't go to ninth century Ireland.
Yes.
I've never even been to 21st century Ireland. So yeah, that was a lot of research. It was a lot of fun. It
Yeah.
was a
Now in that, did you have any like real real people that did exist?
yes.
You did.
One of my characters is Turges, also known as Thorgest and Torgeses, and depending on what book you're reading. And he became the first Viking who was a High King of Era, Ireland, the Green Island.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah,
So
he features in all three books of the trilogy. He wasn't a nice man.
no. Well, I mean, you can't be a conqueror and Viking and be a nice
No,
man. I mean,
it takes a little bit of work. Yeah, and he had to learn the hard way. But yes, I have a real honest to goodness person. So yeah.
see, that's got to be like to me that's fascinating because you're taking someone that existed and you're finding out what they were really like, but then you have to add dialogue and kind of envision what this person from what we know would say and do, and
Yeah. I
and
had to give
try to
him a
keep it true.
story arc that went like at least 20 years.
Oh wow.
So he didn't become High King in the first book of the trilogy. He becomes High King at the end of the third book. So, like, how did he become a raider for Ireland? What prompted him to want to do this? And all of that is working as backstory
Mhm.
while um, the first two books are happening, which aren't about him. He's just in them. And
Oh
then the
wow.
third book is how he decides he's going to become king of this island. Darn it, and he found it was harder to rule than to conquer. I think I used that as a tagline somewhere
Oh wow.
because it's hard. It's a hard
Yeah.
thing to say, yeah, I want to be in charge of you guys as opposed to I just want to come and take your gold.
Yeah. Right.
Smile. Bye. Slaves, I'll take you too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice guy. Like I said. Yeah. No.
Well, it's kind of like England. They found it much easier to conquer the world than to keep it all together under England. You know,
Yeah.
America showed them that.
Yeah. Yeah. The sun Empire of the Sun Never Sets. Is that the sun never set
Yeah.
on the British Empire there for a while, right? Because it
Right.
was
Now it has.
yeah, now it has indeed.
Yes.
Yes. But for a time, it was light somewhere on the British Empire. But yeah, that's a lot of work taking
Yeah.
care of things and like it's cool to come and teach a class as a substitute teacher, but being in charge of that classroom all year and having to do all the stuff, that's a lot of work. I've done both. That's a lot of work. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't want to do either.
Substituting was for me a lot more fun.
Oh,
Yes.
well, I
Let me go.
children frighten me. So
They do. Well, they can be quite terrifying.
yes. So
Yes.
I'm curious, like, so when you get the idea for a book, and whether it's a contemporary or historic, like on average, like from idea to completion, how long does that take you? Like, I'm sure every book is different, but
Every
like,
book is different. With the first book, that is currently Heirs Captive Moon, it started off as Captive Irish Moon. It took me 1 year from the time that I decided what I wanted to the time I wrote the end.
oh
It
wow,
took 1 year, and it was pretty solid research, research, read, internet research, library research, write. And the book was something like 96,000 words when it was
oh wow,
finished. So it was a considerable piece of work. And I remember I finished it, got to the end, and closed my computer up because we were moving across the country that same day.
oh
So
wow.
in my head, I remember exactly when it was and closing it up, packing everything away. Yeah, that was a long, hard party. I'll tell you.
Oh, that's it.
It was very cool.
That is, I mean, it's fascinating. Like, like in my mind, now in today's society, it's got to be difficult to research and write and be creative, especially with like so many distractions. Like everyone has a cell phone, everyone has a laptop or a tablet, and you might be writing, getting your groove on, and really into it, and all of a sudden your phone goes ding, and you have to, and you like, oh, you look at the Facebook, and like an hour later you're looking at memes, and you're like, oh, I got to get back to writing.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
how do you transition or keep yourself focused on doing the writing for this?
Um, well, one is you have to have discipline. When I
Mhm,
mentor writers, I tell them it's a self-discipline issue. You can be really talented, but if you can't focus, then you're
mhm,
not going to finish.
mhm,
And you have to want to get done. You have to want that, you want to get to that finished place in your story. And so you just say, okay, I'm going to write for until I finish 100 words, until I finish 1,000 words, until I finish 3,000 words, or I'm going to write for an hour.
mhm,
Sometimes when I had small children, when they were small, decades
mhm.
ago, I would say, Mom needs 15 minutes, leave me alone. And I would put a timer on and I would just tune everybody out and focus. And unless somebody was bleeding or the house was on fire, I didn't want to hear from it. And they were really cool. They let Mom
Mhm.
alone and I could focus. But I get really, I'm not a nice person when I get interrupted and I'm like trying to get to a space and
Yeah.
I'm really into it. And I'm like, oh, I got to get this scene. And then, Mom, like, I get this all growly face. And I had to learn not to growl at people.
No.
Not nice.
It's the Viking in you coming
It
out.
must be. I have double-bladed axes, I've got throwing axes, I've learned how to fight
Nice.
with a sword. That was part of the research too that was awesomely cool, was, learning how to do all that. Yeah. And I learned how to, spin ninth century style, medieval drop spindle spinning, and I had a medievalist whom I am very fortunate to know, took me to the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival several
Oh
years ago,
wow.
and I bought a drop spindle, and she showed me how to take the raw wool and what to do with it and how to make yarn
Oh
with
wow.
it. It was not, it was like a ninth century type of spindle, and that was really cool. So yeah, I did this so that I could feel how it felt to be these people and to
Oh.
do what they do. And that was for me. When I research, I want my readers to be able to go where I was in my head. I want them to
Mhm.
see and touch and taste and smell what my characters are feeling. What does it sound like when you step out of a Viking raiding of a longboat? Kipnia, if you step out into the low tide, how does that feel with the water dragging on your feet? What does it sound like with your, you got squelchy toes and what does this feel like? What does this sound like? And that is one of the coolest things for me anyway about researching is becoming these people and letting the reader see and taste. I don't make everything that they eat, but I want to know what it tastes like anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a joy to me. This is a rush, real rush.
That's why you're living through your creativity
I,
vicariously through yourself.
I do. I have a vicarious self. I do. I think for me, that's very exciting. I've been a
Mhm.
daydreamer since I was very, very tiny. And so I get to go, like, writing fiction gives me a reason to research and to know all these things because it's profitable. It's my job. It's what I
Yeah.
do. So it's cool. And
It,
yeah, it's a lot of work. It is.
but it makes
So
you a better conversationalist because you know things and can reference and then confuse people by referencing things they know nothing about. That has to be fun.
this is my goal.
Yeah.
I have a brother who is brilliant and he is a polyglot. He speaks three languages fluently and delivers lectures for 8 hours in 2 different languages that he wasn't born knowing, and or speaking or anything. But we have things that we do. It's like we have
Mhm.
to. We spent our whole lives one upping each other. And then this is just it's cool because we're really good friends. But that's how I was raised. You want to
Yes.
know, you want to be able to have a comeback, and yeah, it's probably terrible of me, but yeah.
No, that's wonderful, I think. But so I was wondering, when you're writing, what, like, I know some people find dialogue is the hardest, some people find the description the hardest part. Like, what is something, like, when you're writing, that sometimes makes you, like, that you find the most difficult for you? Obviously, you've been writing a long time, so it's not as difficult. But what is something that still every now and then you're like, I'm not sure if I should describe this or if I should say this. Like, what part is the most difficult for you? I've said
Um,
a lot of words to get to one question.
no, no, I know I was following you, and I'm sitting here in my head going, how do I say this? Um, Today I started writing by hand on December 1st, 1997. So it's been a long time. And over the decades, really, I have learned like some things I'm really good at now and some things I'm not so good at now. The thing that I think is the hardest for me right now happens every single story, excuse me, 2/3 of the way through. I
Mm,
probably have done this to myself because it's always 2/3 of the way through I get stuck.
hmm,
I can have a really good outline, but I'm all of a sudden going, I have to wrap it up. I
yes.
have to start getting him on that last final path. And I've got all these things are still happening, but I need to get this done. And I want to get it done. And if I write too much stuff, then I have to dig my way back out. And so that is really hard for me, is getting that everybody on stage, the
Mhm,
last third of the book. So they
mm,
aren't doing their own things, they're all doing the same thing. That's hard.
yes. Hmm. You could do the nuclear option and just have a bomb go off and have one person end the end.
I did that.
Oh, nice.
Not in any of these books, but I did that in a story I wrote in college, and I had to finish it. And this was the 80s, and we were in the
Mm,
Cold War, and I had
yes.
a Russian blow up the plane that everybody was on, and they died at the end. And that was the end of that story. It wasn't a very
Tragic.
good story.
Yeah. So do you like tragedy or comedy more, or both?
The funny thing is
Yeah.
I like making people laugh.
Mm,
I'm just not good at writing funny.
all right.
I'm good at writing adventure,
Mhm,
battle scenes. That is a craft, by the way. Writing a battle scene is hard. It isn't
mhm,
just fighting, it's making it feel like a fight. And that was hard to learn. Um, and some of the stuff that I get is, oh, this made me cry, or I didn't expect this to be a sad scene, or this. I like making my mom cry in Mother's Day cards. I'm good at making people feel stuff like that, but I'd rather make them laugh. It's just I usually wind up not doing very well in
mhm,
print. So I'm good at dialogue is my best thing
mm.
because the voices in my head are always talking to me. You've heard that it's a thing, and so that's easy for me to get people to sound like themselves. But yeah, I would like to make people laugh. I'm just not good at it,
S
alas.
so, is there a character that you've done, and is it, like, in a book? It could be like a any character that you've ever wanted to, like, focus and revisit, or once you're done with a book, is it like, or a series, or like, okay, I'm done, or is it like you obviously did the trilogy with the Viking King, and then you've done romance novels, but have you ever written a book and then a few years later been like, I'd really like to revisit and see where they are now, and or are you one of these that it's done, it's done?
That's a very really good question because I'm sitting here going, in my head, I would like to do that.
Mhm.
Sometimes um, Stephen King was asked with writing The Stand. I don't know if you've read The Stand by
Yes.
Stephen King, but he said people even decades later will send him letters. How are they doing now? And he's like, what? He says, it's not like we're exchanging letters. We
Mhm.
don't correspond. That was an old book. But that kind of happens. And the Heirs Viking trilogy, okay, so that took a 20-year period, but something came up with, oh, Sandy, you ought to try another book in that. And so I thought about it and I did. I thought I could revisit these people because I still know who they are. In my head, they're still doing their things. Yeah,
Mhm.
I can tell you, oh, 10 years later, Karis is doing this. Absolutely. Um, but I tried and it didn't work.
Mm.
It's like I couldn't get that groove back for that story that I had when I was writing it, because
Mm,
I'm changed.
yes.
And so even though I know who these people are
Hmm.
and I know what they're doing with their lives, because in my head I always know where they're going, because I can't end it till I know what happens next, because it needs to work for me. It's just it's my process. I couldn't go back and revisit them in a book,
Hmm.
no, but I could tell you where they are. Not that we're
No,
doing that. I'm just saying I know where they are, pretty much all of them,
and what
because
they're up
they're all
to.
people that hang out.
Yeah. They're all still there hanging out in your head,
It's a very
drinking
busy
ale, or actually would it be mead. Um,
mead, yes. The
yeah.
occasional soda. Nobody drinks diet soda because I don't
Mm.
drink diet soda.
That's good.
Yeah,
Diet soda will kill you. It's
it's
awful.
nasty stuff. Nasty
Yeah.
stuff. I drink water and coffee these days. So yeah.
See, both, both made by God. So
Bean juice, man. Give
yes,
me the coffee.
yes.
This is
Brown bean juice. You
Father used
can't
to
go
say,
wrong
it's
with
the
that.
nectar, the divine nectar. Yeah.
Yes. So, what can you tell us what you're currently working on? What kind of, not necessarily what the story is, but like what book are you working on now? Are you
Okay, I've got 3 projects in the works
oh
right now.
three?
One is one is a character study of the Apostle Peter, which
Oh
is
wow.
totally not fiction, obviously for me, but it's I'm working on that. It's one thing. But fiction, I've got um I'm working on a project that's going to be part of a compilation that I was invited to do, and it is a short story
Hmm.
that is a it's a romance between it's a the couple has been married for 20 years, and it's like they have a problem they have to deal with in their marriage, and they deal with it. It's a good story. It's just that's the one that currently has me going, I have to get to this scene, that
Yes.
one. So, and I'm working on a novel, a romance novel involving a billionaire, but it's not the one that you think it's going to be, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. So it's kind of cool. And
Nice.
I enjoy that very much. And a Viking.
Very, very cool. So all right, you just said doing a collaboration. Do you find that difficult to work with like other authors, like you're collaborating together on something where maybe they're writing something, then it comes to you? I mean, I don't know how it works. Like if they're writing part and then you're writing part of the story, and you're kind of like, where'd they go with it? Why?
Yes. Yes. I don't play well with others. I don't
Hmm.
do group work very well. I'm that person. The collaboration that I'm working on currently, it's a book that we all have there's a purpose in the book. We all had to have a certain kind of title and a certain kind of story. And we're doing that, but they're all different stories. So it's okay. But that
Hmm.
one I was just showing you, this one here is called Mac's Daring Heart. And it was book 5 in the Sweethearts of Country Music series. And this was when we were collaborating with 4 other authors. And we all are in a shared world. And that was hard because our stories go sequentially. So
Hmm.
and since I was asked to bat clean up, I had to ask everybody else what they were doing with their characters,
Hmm.
because a year or so after their story is done, I'm writing my story for them, and I need to know where their people are. It's like, well,
Yes.
where are they? Which is, for me, I know where they are, but not everybody does that. And so, okay, I'm writing the epilogue of the entire series. Where are they? So I can make sure they say bye before we leave,
Hmm.
and that was really frustrating, but it was also cool because writing is an interesting profession because it's very solitary, but when
Hmm.
you're collaborating with other people that are also working solitary, but they've also chosen, yes, we're going to do this together. And it's hard,
Yeah.
but it's fun.
Yes. So yeah, I had a question and it just popped out of my head.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. I
Balloon.
believe I think it had to do with collaborating. Or
Okay.
maybe it didn't. Well, first, I'd like to know if people want to find your books, where you said they're on Amazon, would they
Yes,
just look up your name, just Sandy Layne? Do you have an author's page? Is that how it works?
I
Or
do. I have, but I also have a website. It's sandilayne.com, SandiLayne.com.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I have links to my books and bio and a blog, and yeah, I've got stuff. There's stuff,
You
there's stuff.
lots of stuff out there.
I have lots of stuff. I've been trying to do, I was writing and self-publishing before anybody was really doing that.
Hmm.
And so I have lots of different things out there, different places I've tried to make websites and stuff. But I've also been published by publishers, but basically I'm indie. They consider it indie. And so, yeah, Amazon, you can look for Sandi Layne on Amazon. I have stuff. I have Kindle and paperback available.
Very cool.
And yeah, so.
Now I remember the question I was going to ask. Pop back in. So if someone has never written, but then suddenly wants to write, what is like the advice you would give them to begin this? Like if they're like, because like my thing is there's so many people out there that like yourself where like they could just be satisfied sitting at home being a mom and a wife and that's valuable and but they think
Hard work.
but you obviously you take time out to do this, but then let's say they hear this and are like, oh, I want to try writing. What advice would you give them to do so they wouldn't get discouraged and be like, oh, I give up?
That's a thing. Um, Anything worth doing is worth working for. That's
Okay.
anything. And so the first thing you write is going to be hard. And
Hmm.
you're going to sit there and you're going to be unhappy with it. I kept my very first draft of the very first book that I was starting to write that one day in 1997. I still have the, oh my gosh, it's horrible, completed first draft of that book, because I need to remember I was really proud of that book. I was incredibly proud of that book. It was a good work. And I look now and going, but because I have worked at it. It was
Hmm.
discouraging because I gave it to somebody. I paid somebody to do a manuscript analysis for that book. And it took me a week just to read it because I cried every day. The first thing to remember, I think, to any aspiring writer that they need to internalize is your words are not your baby. This is
Hmm.
not your child. You would never allow anybody to touch your child the way people will trash your words. I guarantee it. As a mom, if anybody talked to my mom the way they, or talked to my kids the way they talk about my work sometimes, oh yeah, you'd be all mad. So you have to take that step back. If you want to be a success, you have to say, this is a project. This isn't my child.
Yes.
And
Eh,
that's not maybe what you were looking for, but I think for success, you have to be willing to take that step back, or you're never going to keep going. You're going to be offended and hurt for years while critique partners sit there and go, you know, this person, they all sound like Porky Pig. Every character you have sounds like Porky Pig, or they all sound like Malibu Barbie. You're having them all talk the same. And you
mhm,
need to know that that's not personal. This isn't your baby. This is a craft and a skill. And I don't think anybody would expect to be able to say, oh, I love Van Gogh's work. Starry, Starry Night, most amazing picture ever. Oh, I want to paint like that, and expect to get new paints, sit down with their easel and a paintbrush and make this beautiful masterpiece and have people go, whoa,
yes.
dude, you're Van Gogh. Awesome. Nobody would expect to be able to do that. Everybody would expect to say, oh, circles are hard
Mhm,
and they're hard. But people, honestly, and this is, I think, we have a hubris about ourselves. I think they have this overweening pride that we can communicate.
mhm,
Clearly, I'm afflicted with this because I've been doing it a long time. Um, Everybody has a story, and I believe strongly everybody has a story, but that doesn't mean you're going to tell it right the first time ever.
yes.
It is really rare that you get it out exactly the way it wants and exactly how you think it needs to sound, that everybody else hears what's in your head the way you want them to hear it the first time.
Yes.
It almost will never happen.
Exactly, yes. And many people
So
didn't appreciate Van Gogh till he started doing those Star Wars pictures on shirts. So, I mean,
appreciate him ever until he was dead, and all of a sudden he's got hundreds of stuff. They're like, wow, he's really good.
yeah,
I don't
poor guy.
recommend the whole death thing, you
Yes,
know, to get famous. It's not necessary, really. But
yes,
yeah. But I think that's one thing, is you have to understand it's a craft and be willing to put the time in if they want to do it. But by
yes,
all means, start writing. I mean, you hear that from every writer. Write every single day.
yes.
I write every single day, or I have nightmares. True
Yes.
story. So
Start short, write a limerick, go from there.
no, no. Honestly, what you should do, my Sandy's advice is not write a limerick. Sandy's advice is to say, let's go stand in your front yard and take a
Mhm.
breath, and then describe everything that's happening around you.
Oh, nice.
Everything. You notice every detail. And this will teach you to take something outside of you, process it through you, and put it back outside again. And
And
a
then read
writer
it.
has to kind of do that. Mhm.
And then reread what you wrote and see
Yeah.
or hand
And
it to
keep,
someone else and have them read it and say,
yeah.
what did you get out of this?
Exactly so, because that will teach you process.
Mhm.
And I when I first started, I took notebooks with me everywhere, and I'd go sit down in Disneyland, and I'd sit there and oh, I saw this guy with this, mohawk and da 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 da, and I would write down what I saw and what was going on in their heads according to what I thought, because my brain. Um, but yeah, that's what you need to take the outside, process it through you, and put it back out again. I think is one of the most beneficial writing exercises, just to kind of get a feel for what you're doing.
Yes, right. Well, I want to thank you. I know we're hitting the mark and we've gone over 20 minutes, so I apologize for that.
I'm wordy.
Yeah, well, it's fine. So am I, but I know you have a lot to do. You have like 1,000 words to get done today.
I
And
do actually. That's you're good. You're
yes,
good.
I
You
could
can
just
take it.
sense it. And so,
Ooh.
yeah, so I don't want to keep you any longer because I know you're busy and I don't want you to be angry with me and growl at me or something.
No, no, no,
So,
no, no.
and
You have my I blocked off time for you. So this was for you.
thank you. Wait,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that because time is the one commodity you can never get back.
Ever.
Yes.
You have
See,
to be able to trade your day for something
yeah.
worthwhile.
So I've stolen this time from you and you will
Nope.
never get
I
it back.
gave it to you.
Well, I'm
It was
still never going to
delicious.
give it back.
That's good, because that would be weird. Recycled time.
You should
Somebody's
write
done
a
that
book
already.
about that. Time Cop, I think that's what it was. Time Cop.
Okay, okay.
Don't look it up. It's a horrible movie.
I
But
good. That's cool. I watch Pride and Prejudice.
oh,
And Legally
that's not a
Blonde.
horror. Well, you're diverse in your
I
tastes.
am. I am. My influences are Stephen King and Jane Austen. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's weird.
two good writers.
Excellent writers, fabulous people.
So,
Yes.
so thank you again for being on here. And again, if you want to check out Mrs. Sandi Layne's work, it's sandilayne.com, SandiLayne. Is it all one word?
All one word. Thank you.
.com. Go there
Ah,
or check her out on Amazon. You'll find her stuff.
yes. Thank you.
Yes. So as always, stay safe and keep searching out there.